was incredible times. It was honestly everything you've heard about Hacienda, as exaggerated as it sounds, it was probably true.
Welcome to JBTV, your ultimate destination for exclusive interviews with DJs and professionals shaping the music industry. Join us as we dive into Graeme's extraordinary journey from his early days as a resident DJ at the legendary Hacienda Club to his current status as an international icon.
Feel free to ask about my knee.
I'll ask about your knee, don't you worry. Welcome to JBTV, and today our very special guest is Mr. Graeme Park.
Hello.
Welcome.
Nice
Welcome to the
Charlie.
sofa.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Very excited about playing here because I've never played here before, and bizarrely, I've never even been to Joshua Brooks.
Never been?
I just can't believe it, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's been open for since the 90s,
I know.
and
Just never made it in.
yeah.
I love it. I love the fact we're in a basement. The ceiling's not too high. You've got all these arches. It's proper back to basics clubbing.
yeah, and obviously like the decks there, so you're just
Exactly.
surrounded by everyone at the front.
Very intimate, great.
Do you like it when you've got everyone right at the front in your face?
I
type
do.
thing?
I mean, obviously, 40 years since I started DJing, and I do big events, I do festivals, and I do small events like this. These are my favourite because you can't hide from anyone, and it really keeps you on your toes. And I just love that intimacy. Although the one thing I don't like, I understand it, but the one thing I don't is when people will come right up and shove your phone,
Flashlight
face
in your face.
Can you play? Usually fucking brand new heavies. But it's fine, but hopefully I can just be left to concentrate.
Yeah. Well, I've seen you set up today. You've got your two vinyls and then your
Digital vinyl system. I'm using Serato with vinyl and phase, but also CDJ. So I've got four decks, and it means I can pretty much just go mental.
What can we expect from your set tonight?
I don't know, right? I swear to God, right? When I started DJing 40 years ago, I never wanted to be a DJ. I worked in a record shop in Nottingham. The owner of the record shop.
I'm from Nottingham.
You're from Nottingham?
I am from Nottingham.
What part of Nottingham are you from?
Woodthorpe.
Right, okay. So I moved to Nottingham in the early 80s, and I lived in Radford Boulevard, Lenton Boulevard, Hyson Green,
Oh, nice.
Mapley Top, right?
Yeah, Mapley right next to.
And I worked in a record shop called Selectadisc on Bridesmith Gate, probably closed by the time, judging by your age. The owner of the record shop, the late Brian Selby, bought a nightclub, a reggae club called the Ad Lib, and we all said to him, "You're absolutely mad. Why have you bought a reggae club?" He was, "Oh, it's not going to be a reggae club anymore. I'm relaunching it this weekend as the Garage, and Graeme, I want you to DJ at the club." And I'm like, "I'm not a DJ. I play in a band and I sell records." "No, I like the music you play in the shop, and you are going to be my DJ, whether you like it or not." So I reluctantly agreed to take to the decks on the opening night. Oh my God. I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Basically, I just played music I liked, and people liked the music I played. And within 6 weeks, I thought, right, I want to try this for a while. That was 40 years ago. And I remember turning up to a rehearsal with the band I was in, and I turned up and went, "Parky, where's your saxophone?" Lads, about that, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they were really pissed off. But I took that decision, and I thought, I'll see how it goes. That was 1984. 1988, I started at Hacienda. Hacienda closed, I started playing at Cream, and every year it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. There was a bit of a lull, kind of late 2000s, early 2010s, and then kind of 2014, 15, it all went mad again. Hacienda Classical came along, and honestly, I never ever said to myself, I want to be a DJ. It just happened. But like a lot of things in life, if you end up doing something by accident and you enjoy it, do what I do. You grab it with both hands and run with it. And make sure, if you enjoy it, that you keep doing it.
Yeah. Have you ever incorporated the saxophone into one of your sets?
I have. But the thing about saxophone is, it's a very temperamental instrument. I've got a tenor and an alto. You can't just get it out of the case and play it. You've got to get it out and let it
spit on it a bit.
You've got to let it get to room temperature. Then you've got to warm it up. Then you obviously got to mic it up, and then you've got to get it into the mixer. Then it sits on a stand, and it's just difficult. So I have done it in the past, and maybe I'll do it again. I don't know. I do have a MIDI sax, which is great fun because it's a MIDI device with woodwind fingering.
Oh, no way.
And it can be any sound you want. But again, that's such a faff.
Yeah, I asked for a saxophone for my birthday last year and got one.
Oh, brilliant.
So
tenor or alto?
It's an alto.
Brilliant. If you're going to start saxophone, alto is the one to start on.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few lessons, but it's quite difficult to keep on top of. But you know,
you have to practice a lot,
yeah.
and obviously you
didn't realise how many buttons there was going to be.
I know, pads, and then you've got your embouchure, which you bottom.
Oh, my embouchure's great.
Yeah, because obviously you've got to do it every day to build up the kind of strength. So I've got to be honest, I've not played my saxophone for a long time, but you never forget it. Obviously, you have to practice. Maybe I'll get back into it. I did, when we started Hacienda Classical, I thought, right, brilliant, I'm going to play my saxophone. And I took it to the first ever rehearsal we did, but I never played it because the Manchester Camerata, they're professional musicians.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by their standard. And I just thought, quietly put that away, but maybe, who knows.
Yeah, so going back to the start, you know, you've jumped into DJing with two hands and 2 feet, sorry, and you know,
two hands,
2 hands, 2 feet. What was it like just before then? You know, you worked in your record shop. Did you always have that love for, you know, house music?
Well, basically, I started collecting records when I was about 6. Right, and I was 6 in 1970, and the first record I bought. I know there's people say, "Oh, come on, your first record can't be a cool record like this," but it was "Children of the Revolution" by T-Rex. I thought that was amazing. Bought it with my pocket money. After that, it went a bit downhill. I got into mud and Someone Who's in Prison. Gary Glitter. The Sweet, all got a bit kind of poppy. But in 1977, when I was 14, I discovered punk rock, and that was just amazing. I was very lucky in the town I grew up in, Kirkcaldy in Fife. There was an independent record shop called Bruce's. I was in there all the time, buying all these punk records and new wave records. And the manager of the record shop said, "Hey, you're in here all the time, you buy really cool stuff. Do you want a Saturday job?" I was like, do I want a Saturday job in a record shop? So I worked from the age of 14, Saturdays in Bruce's in Kirkcaldy, and that's like an education. I've always loved all types of music, so I had access to all the new releases. Anyway, fast forward, left Scotland, went to live in the East Midlands because my family moved there. They moved back to Scotland, I moved to Nottingham, playing in a band, and again, selected disc in Nottingham. I was a regular customer, buying kind of what the manager thought was cool stuff. One day I went in and he said, "You used to work in a record shop, didn't you?" I went, "I did, in Scotland." He goes, "Right, do you want a job here?"
Oh, nice.
What? But I ended up being the singles and second-hand buyer. So again, I got access to all the new releases, and people would come in with their records to sell, and I was like, oh my God, old disco, old funk, old soul, old psychedelic stuff, old progressive rock, and I would just buy it all for myself. And then about 84, that's when the club opened. So 1984, I was just playing things like New Order, Talking Heads, Blondie, Human League, Cabaret Voltaire, mixed with old disco, funk and soul. Then hip hop appeared, and then 1986, all this obscure stuff that would end up being called house music started to appear. And I had access to it all, and then that's when things really started to take.
What age were you at that point in time?
So I was 19 in 1984 when I started DJing, and so in 86 I was 21, 22, and just like young and enthusiastic and keen. But people loved all this new stuff I was playing, and eventually your New Orders and your Orange Juices and your Talking Heads and Human League and everything, started playing them less and less and less, and more hip hop and more early house. Half of the audience didn't like all the new stuff, but the other half loved it. And then the people who didn't like it stopped coming, but the people who loved it would tell everyone about what was happening, so eventually more people would come. And then I met Mike Pickering, who worked at Hacienda in 1987 at a photo shoot in London, and we hit it off. Next thing, he asked me to cover for him at Hacienda when he was on holiday in 1988, and did 3 weeks while I was on holiday. Loved it. He came back from holiday, said, I heard it was great, do you want to come and join me on a Friday? And then suddenly, that's when I thought, I think this is my job now. So it's basically 4 years of playing music I liked. People loved it, and then I thought, no, this is the job for me.
I really want to speak about the Hacienda, because people my age won't have had that experience inside, and everyone says, it's like the deity, isn't it?
The thing with Hacienda, there was nothing like it. I mean, other super clubs appeared afterwards, like Graeme, and the guys from Graeme would come at Hacienda, and if you ask them, they'll say, well, we wanted to do our version of Hacienda in Liverpool, same with Gatecrasher, same with Ministry of Sound, because there was nothing like the Hacienda. It was the first club that I'd ever worked in where it didn't matter who you were. Up until 87, 88, clubs were very kind of focused on specific styles and specific groups. So you went to a rock club, you went to a goth club, you went to an indie club, you went to a pop music club, you went to a funk and soul club. Suddenly, the Hacienda, it didn't matter what type of music you're into, and everyone dressed down. You didn't have to dress up to get in. And it was a case of everyone together, and of course there was this little magic pill that appeared called ecstasy, and that made everyone just want to hug each other, and it really was incredible times. It was, honestly, everything you've heard about Hacienda, as exaggerated as it sounds, it was probably true.
Yeah. Well, so, I'm trying to picture it in my head of what it would look like, and I want to sort of, can you paint me a picture of if I was in sort of the middle of the room, what's going on around you, where's the decks, and where's the DJ?
Mike Pickering and I did Friday nights together, Nude Night. We were 20 feet in the air in a DJ booth that had a stable door. The great thing about that was, somebody knocks on the door, you open the top half of the door, and they can't come in. The best DJ booth
That's so smart.
ever. If you wanted them to come in, you could let them in, right? So we were 20 feet in the air, fantastic DJ box, looking down on a dance floor that's packed full of people, a few podiums, and a stage with a proscenium arch a bit higher up. And there was 2,000 people, and they were all living in the moment. None of these, no phones. I mean, obviously, I'm not knocking phones, because your generation, you've known nothing but smartphones. And I get it, you all want to take, videos and photographs of being in the moment. Great. But pre-smartphones, and even nobody took cameras out, because this is before they invented disposable cameras. Everyone just came down, had a few drinks, had their half an E or their E, and just danced, but facing each other. Although after a while it changed so that everyone on the front of the stage would then get in this thing where they were looking up at me and Mike doing this stupid acid house dance. All you got to do is go on YouTube.
I've seen it. Like
this.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but it was amazing. And then that's what it was like every week. But it was Wednesday nights, Mike Pickering and John Da Silva, hot. Thursday nights, Dave Haslam's student night. Fridays, me and Mike, Nude Night, and then Saturdays was, I don't know who was on a Saturday, but that was just, and it was packed every night. Christmas, New Year, our birthday on May the 22nd or 21st, 22nd, it didn't matter what night of the week it was. If our birthday was a Tuesday or a Sunday or Christmas Eve, whatever night Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve was, we didn't move the birthday to fit a popular night. It was, some nights you'd have 7 nights a week, but you got to remember there was less clubs, less DJs, and people would travel. Okay, people nowadays will travel to festivals and huge events like the Warehouse Project. People travel all over from that. But if you don't want to travel, most towns and cities have some kind of venue that's got a DJ on, right? Back then, no. Less venues, less DJs. So if you wanted to hear me or Mike Pickering or whoever, you had to travel to where we were DJing. And then back in the day, I did Wednesdays in Sheffield, Thursdays in Leicester, Fridays Manchester, Saturdays Nottingham, and I would never have a night off. If somebody offered me a guest appearance somewhere, no, I've got my 4 nights. So you'd end up doing Sunday nights in Blackburn, Monday nights in Derby and Tuesday nights in Swindon. Why? Because that's the only way they could get you. But people would go out on those nights.
Yeah.
It was honestly completely different times. I'm not saying it's better. A lot of my generation go on about how it was much better back in the day. No, it was different. It was more groundbreaking, and it was more dangerous and adventurous. But we are where we are, and if you don't want to go out on a Monday, Tuesday, and if you want to take your smartphone, and you don't want to travel, that's fine. This is where we're at now, and I'm very lucky that after 40 years, I'm still able to do what I love, and I still sometimes can't believe it. Like tonight at Joshua Brooks, I'm getting to do 6 hours to about, how many people did you get in here?
450, 500.
Right, so that's not a lot of people. I mean, I know it's sold out, and I just think it's a real privilege to be able to do it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about like groundbreaking and obviously the evolution of house. You know, this is a point in your time, especially in your DJ career, where you're picking up these records and you're like, oh, this is a new sound, you know. What sort of, could you feel that this was going to be this new this new thing?
I think so, because I remember Mike and I, probably middle of summer 1988, and let's be honest, we would also indulge, right? The doors would open at 9 o'clock, only because people would start queuing up at 7:30 because they didn't want to risk not getting in. The doors opened at 9, and people would just flood in, and by 9:10, 9:15, everybody's dancing.
Yeah.
So by 10 o'clock, the fucking place is jumping, and that's because clubs closed at 2. There's no way around it. Clubs closed at 2. And so Mike and I would indulge everyone, and there's always this moment when one of us would drop a tune, and then Mike and the whole venue would kind of come up at the same time. And I do remember one night Mike and I just looking at everyone and looking at each other and then doing one of those kind of sweaty hugs that you do, going, this is special. And we kind of knew it was special, but I don't think either of us thought, or I don't think anyone at the time thought, this is the start of something that's going to run for the next 25, 30 years, you know. What it was, I took part in the Nighttime Economy Summit the other day.
I was there, yeah.
And I was on a panel about counterculture and where is counterculture in 2024. The Acid House Summer of Love rave scene was a counterculture. It was quite political. It was anti-Thatcher, it was anti-establishment, it had this DIY ethic, and it was a new thing for young people to embrace. And we did feel we were part of something special. But having said that, fast forward 40 years, if you told me that like 3 weeks ago I would be doing a corporate event at Telford International Exhibition Centre with Sophie Ellis Bextor for a big fee, I would have gone, don't be soft. But I did, and it's bizarre that I do a lot of corporate stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, so that counterculture, that dangerous acid house movement has become mainstream. However, the thing about electronic music, I mean, people used to say dance music, but I think it's electronic music. It's very easy now to get yourself a laptop and a few, bits of kit, and you can make stuff quite easily, quite simply, without having to book studios, without having to work with other people or put a band together. So that counterculture still exists, but it's more in pockets and a bit more kind of underground. So I just think to be part of that scene and still be part of it is like I say, it's a privilege.
I want to talk about like the free festival movements that were happening at that time. You know, I'm guessing you probably experienced or dabbled in some of those.
If you're talking about illegal raves, they only existed because clubs like the Hacienda, the Boardwalk, even Cream when it started, they shut at 2 o'clock. There was no way around it until the Labour government of 97. After a few years, they changed licensing laws so clubs could stay open until 4, 5, 6, and bars could stay open until 12, 1, 2. So until that licensing law was changed, at 2 o'clock, all clubs shut. Now, if you've got 2,000 people in Hacienda who've been dancing to acid house all night, or big piano Italian house, or Detroit techno, and they've had a couple of pills and they're buzzing, well, you don't want to stop at 2 o'clock. So in the summer, you'd end up in the back of a car, no idea where you're going, to a field or the Pennines, somewhere outside, sound system, illegal rave. In the winter, when it's freezing up north, you're in a warehouse in Blackburn, right? And that whole movement was a result of the fact that people wanted to keep partying, but the only way to do it was to do your own thing. And that now is a legendary movement. But if you look at the Joshua Brooks now, it's got that warehouse feel. It's like arches, it's exposed brick. And I just think tonight will have that kind of slightly dangerous, illegal feel, even though it's not. And I think that's why the Warehouse project is so popular and successful, because it is a warehouse. I mean, I was down there in the daytime the other day to do some press shots. It's freezing, and it's like if you said to someone, "This is the Warehouse project," you go, "No, it's not. It's a bloody massive fucking warehouse." But when it's full of people and you've got the sound system and the lights, although it's not illegal, it has that feel of being a bit dangerous, even though it's totally above board and health and safety of boxes it takes. And I like the fact that clubs nowadays have the paramedics there and drug testing. But if it wasn't for the illegal raves, I don't think you'd have the things like the Warehouse project.
So what do you think the future holds for the industry and also for yourself?
I think the industry is in a difficult place because of the pandemic and because of lockdown and because of the cost of living and because our government refused to accept that the nighttime economy is worth so much to the British.
I think it's the 4th biggest in the UK.
It is. Now, up until 20, because I'm a part-time senior lecturer at Wrexham University, and I do a lecture on this. Up until the pandemic, the nighttime sector, and that's clubs, bars, restaurants, cinemas, anything that's open after 6 p.m, was worth something like £14 billion to the economy. Obviously that took a massive hit in the pandemic and it's still struggling to recover. Pubs are closing, bars are closing, clubs are closing. People who used to work in the industry, whether they're artist liaison, whether they are event management, whether they are bar managers, they're losing work and leaving the sector. And our government, there's ways of fixing that. One quick way would be to reduce the VAT rate for bars and clubs. That would make a massive difference. And to give tax breaks, not permanently, just to help the industry, like rent reductions, etc. I think it's a very difficult time, and I think I worry for young, up and coming DJs, producers, and artists who might not have the opportunities that they had pre-pandemic. And a lot of people might go, well, you know what? As much as I want to make music, I'm going to have to go and get a job. That's my worry. But I do think the world has always looked at British kind of club culture and electronic music and dance culture, and our current government do not, I think, appreciate that. Whereas I do think a Labour government in the past has embraced the nighttime economy, and I think a future Labour government would do so. But that's up to you lot to not bloody vote Tory, innit?
I feel bad for all those freelancers that were working, throughout the pandemic, and all of a sudden 2 years stopped completely, and there was no support for.
I had 18 months of no income apart from my part-time lecturer salary, which I almost gave that up before the pandemic. My wife taught me out of it. Always listen to your partner, your wife, husband. But I had no income for 18 months. And luckily, because I've been doing this all my life and I almost lost everything in the 2008 financial crash, but I learned from that. So I was lucky I had money put to one side for a rainy day, and that rainy day came with the pandemic. But a lot of people weren't so lucky. I didn't get any payment from the government because the way that I work, a lot of the contracts I have, especially when I do stuff for the BBC or big companies, they will only deal with a limited company. So I've got a limited company, I'm a director of the limited company, but according to the government, that meant, oh no, we're not giving any directors of limited company help. But a lot of people who work in the nighttime economy and in the entertainment sector do have limited companies because they have to. And so they were all basically hung out to dry. I didn't get any furlough. I applied for some grants. Grants were available, but unfortunately I never got them. But I was lucky that after 18 months I was okay. If it had gone on another 6 or 8 months or another year, I might have struggled. But I was fine. And if anyone under the age of 30 is watching this and want to work in this industry going forward, I wish I'd done this 40 years ago when I started. Take out even a small amount for a pension, and put, if you can, 10% of what you earn to one side for a rainy day. If you can do more than 10%, do it. I know it's tough because of the cost of living, but our government don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's tough. So moving on from that, I want to go back to sort of the end of that era in the 90s, and you're going into the 2000s. What was that sort of, could you see it changing and evolving? Obviously the licensing and everything was getting out, so there were more clubs opening and stuff like that.
More clubs open, because bars could open until 2 in the morning, that affected a lot of clubs because people wouldn't go out, because when clubs were open from 10 till 2, they'd be full by 10 or 11. But when bars open till 2, if we've got a DJ on and people got a nice table and the drinks aren't as expensive, why go to a club? So that was a struggle, but then clubs would start opening later. People who started clubbing in the 80s, by the time we got to the early 2000s, they stopped going out because they'd have children or have serious jobs. And then you got a new generation, but they wanted their DJs. They weren't interested in people like us. However, there's this in the past 5 years, a lot of people who used to go clubbing, people of my age, their kids have grown up and gone to university or left home, or they've taken early retirement because they've done really well out of life. They're out clubbing again. They don't want to hear DJs they've never heard of. They want to hear old bastards like me. So it's bizarre. So that's why I started doing lecturing in 2008, because I thought, well, I think maybe I've had a good innings. Things are winding down, not just for me, but for my peers. But then it all started to pick up again.
Yeah.
But I've kept lecturing because, well, I enjoy it, and it's 2 days a week. And as I found out in the pandemic, that was my only income for 18 months. But things always change, and as I said earlier, there's a lot of my generation who moan about how things aren't the same as they used to be. I've got no time for that. Live in the moment and enjoy the moment, because you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody could have predicted the pandemic. And in your health, I'm very lucky. I've got my health. I mean, I've recently had knee replacement surgery.
Yeah, you came in hobbling along on a crutch.
I had that 5 weeks ago, but I'm doing really well. I've got a crutch just in case someone knocks into me. And I'm very fortunate I've got my health, but that could change at any minute, you know what I mean?
Anyone that puts up a phone, you can whack them on the head.
Exactly. If I pick that crutch up, it's my way of saying, get back on the dance floor.
So, obviously, during the 2000s and 2010s, you obviously picked up a radio show?
Well, I started on the radio
Was this before?
In the 90s on Kiss. I used to do guest stuff on Kiss FM in London, and then Kiss launched in Manchester. So I started doing stuff on Kiss in Manchester, and then Kiss in Yorkshire, and then it became Galaxy, and I was the Galaxy all over the country. Then I left Galaxy and went to Key 103 in Manchester. Then I did stuff on Radio City in Liverpool, Crash FM in Liverpool, which became Juice. And then in 2008, lost all the Fourth FM in Edinburgh, Juice FM in Brighton. Lost all those contracts, but then started doing my own syndicated show, which I still do, the Long and Fast radio show. But a few years ago, it was in lockdown actually, a radio station called Mum Spaghetti launched out of Oldham on digital and online, and the strapline was Hip Hop, House and Happiness. And I've been doing the breakfast show on Mum Spaghetti up until my knee operation, when I've taken a break because I can't be going to Oldham every single morning with a knee surgery. But hopefully I'll be back on soon.
What's it like on a radio show compared to, playing out to a crowd?
It depends on the radio show. When I was on Galaxy, I was doing weekday afternoons. So it was a combination of big tunes and commercial news stuff. When I did Key 103 and Radio City on a Saturday night, I hated the name of the show. It's called Old School and Anthems, which I hated the name, but it meant I could play kind of big commercial stuff to get people ready for Saturday night. Mum's Spaghetti Breakfast, it's literally like A Tribe Called Quest, Grandmaster Flash, LL Cool J, and then, you know, Shapeshifters, and kind of obvious house. But the thing is, you got to think you're talking to an audience. It's not just about the music, it's talking to an audience and entertaining them and just being accessible. But my weekly Long Live House radio show, which is syndicated around the world, that's me playing a combination of big tunes, new tunes, and classic tunes too. It's not so much talking, it's more about the music in a mix. So it depends on the show, it depends on the station. But I do enjoy doing radio, yeah.
With everything going on in the cloud at the moment,
Yes.
and, you know, downloads and stuff like that. So, you know, for my generation personally, it's all Spotify and SoundCloud, and you know, it's all on there. And then radio's not going. It doesn't look to me like I would ever on, you know, listen to radio. So it's like
a tough market. That's why BBC Sounds is so popular, because people can just go and access what they want when they want. The same with television. iPlayer. Why go? Oh my God, it's 10 to 9. I'm going to miss The Apprentice. Oh no, it doesn't matter. I can watch it on iPlayer when I get home. Same with a lot of radio. It's on demand. But I know, like your generation, I totally get it. Why would you tune into a radio station when you can? If you're on Spotify or Apple Music, the algorithms will curate a playlist for you based on what you listen to. I totally get it. I just think if you are on the radio like me, you've got to make sure you do something that is going to make people want to listen to. But social media is important. If you've got to shout about what you do on social media.
What sort of things are you doing now that you weren't doing before? And, you know, with this generation, what are the sort of things that you're doing to actually sort of engage that audience, and you know, still your old audience as well, but just keeping people engaged throughout the years?
Social media is important. I was a very early adopter of every platform. Not so much TikTok. I only recently got on TikTok, because I didn't quite think it was necessary, but I do realise it is. But MySpace, I was on there like right at the beginning. I'm sure there's still a MySpace profile with me out there. Facebook, Twitter.
You'll get loads of messages now if it's still
Facebook,
up.
Twitter, Instagram was a very early adopter, but a lot of my generation didn't bother about it. And then they were all coming to me in the kind of mid-2000s going, how come you've got all these followers? I'm like, well, because I got on it early, and it's about posting stuff that people will find interesting. Not just about your gigs, but some kind of personal stuff as well. But I've always embraced technology. When CDJs came along, when CDs came along, a lot of my peers were like, oh no. And I went, well, I'm going to give it a go. I never liked CDs, but then when digital vinyl system came along, Serato, it meant I could go back to the feel of vinyl without carrying the vinyl, so I could have my digital files but play them like vinyl. So I've always been an early adopter of technology. I love technology. With Hacienda Classical, which is me and Peter Hook and a choir and an orchestra, reinterpreting classic club tunes. The orchestra do all the analog stuff, Peter Hook does his bass and stuff, but I've got turntables, keyboards, samplers, and I just do kind of the stuff the orchestra can't do, and it's really exciting. In fact, thinking about it, I always wanted to be in a band, but gave that up to be a DJ. Fast forward to today, I am in a band, but it's on a much grander scale. I'm performing on a stage with 60 musicians. It's mental.
Yeah, I worked the Sounds of the City Hacienda Classical in 2022, I think it was. Amazing. And it was amazing to see. Like, the crowd was amazing, and you know, everyone there was just going crazy for it. And it was really nice to see.
It's an older crowd who used to go to Hacienda, but a lot of the time they bring their grown-up kids with them. It's a real mix of people. It's such a joy to do. And bizarrely, I used to sing in a band, and sometimes if Peter Hook can't do the show, I have to sing Blue Monday. Which, if you'd said to me when I was going to see New Order live in the early 80s that I'd end up being friends with them, specifically with Peter Hook, and I would get to sing Blue Monday but with an orchestra, I would have laughed. But yet, here we are. It's amazing. I can't believe it.
Yeah. So for you right now, you know, what's production like for you? You know, do you produce tunes, or are you just?
Well, that's the thing. See, we had kids. Me and my wife had kids in 2004. I DJ most weekends. I've got a radio show to produce. I lecture 2 days a week. We had twins. We've got a dog. So making music and remixing music and producing had to go on the back burner. However, my son Ben is making music and he's amazing and he's desperate for me to get back into it. Now he's 19, he doesn't need looking after. So I've promised him when my knee is better and I can get back to lifting things, I have a tiny studio at the back of our garage, like about a quarter of the garage is my studio. I've promised him we're going to clear the whole lot out and start from scratch, build a proper studio, mainly for him, but then when that proper studio's there, in my house, I think it's time for me to get back to making stuff. I know I will.
Yeah.
And people will be very excited about it.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm quite excited thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's getting me a bit excited. I'm just seeing you there trying to, start from scratch almost with...
The thing is though, I mean, I've been watching my son on Ableton Live and he's incredible. He does stuff that I just think, wow, I can't believe that's possible. I use Pro Tools, he uses Ableton. I want to stick with Pro Tools, he wants to stick with Ableton. But it's all about transferable skills and me taking stuff from him and him taking stuff from me. So I think give it another 6 months and I'll be back.
6 months?
Well, because I can't be lifting things and we need to get a skip and clear the garage out. Then we need to get someone to come and soundproof it and put stuff like desktops and shelves and drawers and everything. That'll take a while.
Big subs.
Exactly.
Lovely stuff. So moving on, what are you? I know it's.
Yeah, we've got to get going.
We've got not a lot of time because you're on a 6-hour set tonight. So we'll move on. So looking back on your career, if you could pick out 3 favourite moments.
Well, you see, I know it's a boring answer, but I'd like to think those 3 favourite moments have yet to happen. That's because I still love what I do and I still look forward to all my gigs, especially tonight. But 3 favourite things, well, my first night at the Hacienda on my own, I still remember that vividly. That was incredible. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. A gig I did in Uruguay, a club called Space in Punta del Este in Uruguay, unbelievable. And opening Glastonbury with Hacienda Classical, opening the Pyramid Stage in Glastonbury in 2017. Again, if you said to me you'll be opening Glastonbury with this classical orchestra, unbelievable. Those are the 3 highlights, I think.
And what do you reckon the future sort of holds for you? How long do you think you'll still be doing?
I never thought I'd be doing it this long, so I'd like.
So you may as well keep going.
Exactly. People, as long as I still enjoy it, as long as people still enjoy me doing it, and as long as places like this want to book me, then why not do it? If I didn't enjoy it, I'd give it up. If people stopped enjoying what I was doing, I'd give it up. If my health was to suffer, then I'd give it up. But there are DJs older than me still doing it, so just take each day as it comes. But I hate people who give out advice without getting asked for it. But one thing I would say, that
was my next question. So I'll ask you, what advice would you give out?
Social media feeds are full of idiots telling you how to do this and that. Like, oh, fuck off. But if you ask for some advice, don't pay any attention to what anyone else is doing. Be aware of it, but stick to your own lane. Learn from your mistakes. Enjoy what you do. Then anything's a bonus. Don't be wanting too much too soon. Don't be desperate to make it. Just focus on what you do. Enjoy what you do. Be aware of what's going on around you, but ignore it and focus on what you do. And if you're good, you will get somewhere. That's what I would say.
I think that.
Don't listen to boring bastards like me.
I think that's wrapped it up nicely.
Charlie, thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming.
You're welcome.
And I'm really looking forward to hearing your set tonight.
We'll get ready.
But yeah, thank you very much. This has been JBTV. Thank you very much, Graeme.